Hi everyone, Amy here checking in to give you some updates for the first week of our summer semester for CCR 092. Every week I will be checking in this way about midweek, usually Thursday or Friday. I waited a little bit longer than usual this time just because I know we didn't start till Tuesday this week. I'll talk about that more in just a second. But my goal here is really just to give you a few brief updates and kind of explain what I see as going on in the class for each particular week, some strengths and weaknesses, redirect or join in on the conversation, talk about ways that things can relate to the essays that you're writing, and so on. So I try to give you just 5 or so tips, and so I like to call these my top 5. So for this week, I know we have a lot. I'm sure you were all pretty overwhelmed when you logged into the course and saw everything that you needed to do. And again, because we started on Tuesday this week, it feels even more rushed, and not to mention that we are starting the semester, and so there's all those getting started materials that you have to work through as well. So I know it's been a lot of hours over the last several days, and I really appreciate you kind of jumping in the deep end this way for our 5 credit course that's been compressed, as you know, into 10 weeks. So the first thing touches on one of those required kind of getting started elements, which is the orientation to online learning. If this is your first online class, you will need to complete that orientation. You can find it in your syllabus. The link is located in with the required policies for the college Department of Online Learning. You will see it is kind of down below some of my own personal policies for our class. It is in blue. My computer is just very slow in terms of scrolling. Okay, so required orientation to online learning, it's right here. You just follow that link. It is for only new students who have not taken an online class before. So if you've done that and already completed the online orientation, no worries, you don't have to do it again this time, but this will take you to our Front Range Community College website, and you can see that there is the orientation right here. Okay, sorry, it's in small print. So it says orientation to online learning. You will click there. It'll tell you that there are options, so you can do it within D2L, or you can take a AAA 091 class, which is actually a 1 credit course, but it does take 5 weeks. And so since we are already within the semester, we just request that you do the online version within D2L. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know, or you can reach out to our success coach, Deb. I know you've all been in contact with her through our introductions discussion that we have going on, and she's been calling you. So either one of us can give you further information if you're still confused about the requirements for the orientation. The next thing is just to give you another brief rundown of how our week is structured every single week of the semester. So I've been getting several emails about what assignments need to be completed or where you can find certain assignments, and so I just want to give you the big picture because the rest of the time I'm going to spend talking about some of the more detailed stuff that we have going on for this particular week. So there's kind of a structure to every single week. We will always have basically 4 or 5 elements. So the major essays is the only variable. We always have a major essay that we're working on, but if we are not starting or ending the unit, I don't post the major essay materials every single week. So for example, this week, week 1, we are beginning a unit, of course, because it's the first week of the semester, and so I do have materials for our first major essay, the narrative. So you can see that under week 1, major writing assignment number 1. I also have a module in the content area that's just for the major writing assignments, and you can see all of them there that will complete the semester, just so that if you are in a week where we are maybe not introducing or wrapping up one of those, you can refer back to those materials very quickly. So you can see here, for example, in week 2, I'm not introducing a new essay because we're still working on the narrative, but it's not due yet either. So I haven't reposted the assignment sheet or the sample or the Dropbox or anything like that here. But if you wanted to find those things, all you would have to do would be to go to that major writing assignments module, click on, of course, the narrative essay, and then you can see all those things that I just mentioned. Or, if you prefer, it's always still going to live back in week 1 as well. And when we're wrapping up a unit, you'll see I not only have a Dropbox for the essay that we're wrapping up, but I'm probably also going to be introducing a new one. So that's just kind of a heads up for the first thing you want to look for when you are logging into your content for each week of the 10-week semester. And then the rest of these things are not going to change. So every week you will have a discussion, a journal, grammar quiz, and some kind of student success activity, which might take various forms, or you might have a couple of things that you need to do. So your discussion is always going to be, your first post required by midnight Wednesday, 2 comments by midnight Friday, reflection by midnight on Sunday. So for this week, our discussion is looking at those the sample essay, and then asking you to brainstorm some of your own goals. So you can see I have a module for that under week 1. You can see the sample and the pre-writing brainstorming materials that I have there. Then you can also just click on the discussion itself, which will take you to the more specific instructions. And you can see here there's part 1 and part 2. I'll talk about the week 1 discussion a little more in depth in just a couple of minutes. But again, this is just something you're going to see every single week. There will be certain weeks where our discussion is a peer review workshop where you have to upload a rough draft, for example, week 3, and that will just live in the discussion section for that particular week. So where you have your discussion is where you'll also find any of the required materials or course content, PowerPoints or websites or worksheets that you need in order to complete that discussion. So then the very next thing that you will have every single week is a journal. A journal is something that will be uploaded to the Dropbox. There's Dropbox folders for all of these journals every single week. So you can see here, I'll just show you real quick in the Dropbox where there's a section for the journals. There's also links in the content area for every single week. My internet is being slow, of course. Okay, so formal essay section, there's a journal section, and then a success coach activities section for any of those success coach activities that end up being turned into the Dropbox. But you'll see here the week 1 journal is the only one that's open because of course right now we're in week 1. And so the instructions are there and it tells you exactly what you need to do, and then it will allow you to submit by adding a file there. So for week 1, our journal is going to help you brainstorm a thesis statement for the narrative essay. So it's going to go a little bit beyond just the goals that you're brainstorming for your discussion this week and help you work it into an actual thesis statement. Okay, and there's a little bit of information again that you'll need in order to make that happen in that section of the content module as well. You'll always have a grammar quiz. So this week we are doing parts of speech, and you can see there's also a grammar section. That's where you have your PowerPoint about whatever grammar element we're covering that week. You might have a practice quiz. Here I've got some videos this time that are really cool and help you understand all the different parts of speech. And then of course you'll have the quiz itself, which is only open for this week. Quizzes are always due midnight on Sunday of each particular week concerned. And then the very last thing that you'll have to do every week are those student success activities, where you'll be getting feedback from both Deb and myself about things that will help you not only for your essays, but also to succeed in keeping on top of all your responsibilities for this class and all your other classes. So for example, a lot of the stuff you'll be doing in this first unit for your student success activities will directly tie into what you're writing about for your narrative essay. So it just kind of overlaps that way. But then this week we also have a scavenger hunt that'll help you work through all the course policies and will ensure that you are familiar with the syllabus. So just a couple of things there. And as I mentioned before, these student success activities might take various forms. So the course scavenger hunt, for example, it may the most sense to use the quiz feature to set that up. On the other hand, the pre-reflection activity is just a little paragraph that you're going to write, and so that can easily be turned into the Dropbox. So I've set up a Dropbox for that. So if you are confused any week of the semester about what you need to complete, make sure you are looking for all of these things to be covered. Make sure you know what major essay you're working on in that unit, what discussion you need to complete for that week, because you'll need to get your first response to the prompt posted up there by midnight on Wednesday of every week. What journal you need to be working on, that's always due Sunday night at midnight. What grammar lesson we're focusing on, again, grammar quizzes are due Sunday night at midnight, and what student success activities you have going on and what forms they take. Those are also due at midnight on Sundays. There will be some times when we have maybe a small informal discussion as part of our student success work for a particular week, and when that's the case, you're not required to do posts, comments and replies and reflections and all that. I'll just give you something to talk about, and you can post and reply to each other as much as you want to, but you'll get your points just for doing the initial post itself. And then again, Deb and I both will be weighing in on those things. So if you have questions about any of these elements, just let me know. But again, that's just kind of the big picture of what you'll need to make sure that you're thinking about every week, because as we get into Week 1, Week 2, Week 3, we will have much more specific things going on for each of these categories, so to speak. Which brings me to my next point here, which is our first major writing assignment, which we have introduced this week. I just want to talk about it a little bit so you know what you're supposed to be writing about. It's a narrative, which means you're going to be writing about your own personal experiences and your own life. But instead of just any old personal narrative like you might have done in high school, I'm asking you to write about your personal goals for education. And when I say that, I mean specifically for your education here at Front Range Community College. You know, a lot of research shows that if you set your goal way too far out in advance, you're less likely to achieve it. So I'd like you to keep it pretty short term and just what you're focusing on, why you're here at Front Range. You're writing this for me, but you're also writing it for yourself so that you can think about these things, and kind of saying them out loud makes them more likely to actually happen in real life. And then I do want you to be thinking deeply as a writer about these experiences you've had in the past with education, and also what your relevance of being here at Front Range is, and what your future goals are for your career, for your family, for your future education, and things like that. So on any assignment sheet for the major essays we'll do this semester, I'll break down, of course, what you're writing about, who you're writing it for, and how to present yourself as a writer, but I'm also going to give you steps for writing the essay. So for this, a lot of the first step here is really just to reflect and think deeply about the experiences you've had in the past and what brought you to Front Range. We're doing some of that reflecting with our Week 1 discussion already. And then you have to think about what success really means to you. So I want you to consider some of these questions. And again, the Week 1 discussion is really designed to get you through step 1 here on the assignment sheet. Then you're going to work on coming up with a thesis statement. And your thesis statement needs to present your goal for your time at Front Range, which is the main idea of your essay, combined with subpoints for your essay, which are going to be the steps that you'll need to achieve that goal. So this is going to be tied into your Week 1 journal activity. So you want to make your goal specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So it needs to be pretty narrow. Don't just say, I want to do well in college. Be specific. If you want to earn a 3.0, if you want to get 12 credits every semester, etc., etc. Just be really detailed in exactly what you want to do. It needs to be relevant, so there should be some component of why you want to complete the goal. It should be something that's attainable, so that's why you're going to map out steps to achieve your goal as subpoints for your essay. It needs to be measurable. Usually that is covered by, you know, depending how specific your goal is, whatever will mark the completion of that goal. So if your goal is to graduate, it will be receiving your diploma. If your goal is to earn a certain number of credits, it will be when you get those credits on your transcript. So that's almost an implied element, but there should also finally be some time element there and how long you think it will take to complete your goal. So then once you have that thesis statement, the next step is going to be to actually plan out the paper. I've created this chart which will help you use the thesis statement from step 2 to kind of identify paragraphs for the body of your essay and then fill in the details of those paragraphs with personal examples from your own life, much like you saw in the sample essay. So you're going to have your definition of success. That's the overall main idea for your essay. And then you can include perhaps in the introduction some background information about your own personal life that led you to wanting to achieve that goal. Then, as I said before, the steps to achieve your goal are going to be subpoints for the body paragraphs of your essay, and then you'll want to fill those in with personal examples. And we'll work on this over the next couple of weeks with the journal and discussion and student success assignments that you'll be asked to do. And then you're going to really revise your thesis again to solidify it, and that will help you get started on writing the actual paragraphs. And then you'll fill in those paragraphs with specific concrete details focused on individual moments portrayed in scenes from your own personal life. And then we'll do some work with revising the draft as we get into our peer review workshop discussion for the narrative essay, and then you'll have some time after you get that feedback before you turn in your final draft. The next thing you'll find are all the nitty-gritty details, so how it should look and be formatted. We'll practice this, I think next week, and how long it should be, when the rough draft is due in the discussion for workshop, when the final draft is due in the Dropbox for grading, and the overall point value. It looks like it did not update my document. I was having some trouble with this, so I will fix these dates on the assignment sheet. It's due in the rough draft form week 3, and then it's due in final draft form the Friday of week 4. The strategies section will tell you some specific suggestions about what you should do to be successful. They go in order following the steps that are included earlier on the assignment sheet. So step 1, strategies, will be higher on the list, so to speak. So you can see this is all related to reflection here. Then we have some suggestions for writing your thesis statements and how to go back and edit once you are finished composing. The next thing you'll find is the actual rubric, and this gives you the categories across the top of things that I will be grading you on. So how deeply you're thinking about your experiences, how well you were able to set your goal, how well organized the essay is, and how well polished, edited for English language, how much and closely you're following MLA formatting, and things of that nature. So you can see across the side I have various levels and how I would grade each of those categories. So if you were getting a C in the reflection category, you know, you're really struggling to focus on moments portrayed in scenes. You're not really thinking deeply about your past experiences. On the other hand, if you have a really strong goal, you're really including all of those SMART criteria and so on. So this is just what I use when I figure out how I'm going to assess the final draft. So I do not use this for the rough draft, just FYI. All right, so if you have any further questions about the first major writing assignment, you can email me, you can post in the week 1 discussion, you can post in the general questions discussion over in Coach's Corner. You know, if you're wondering something or have a question, it's likely that your classmates are wondering the same thing as well. So please don't hesitate to ask. I'm always happy to help. Okay, so that leads me to the discussion for this week. I'll usually try to touch base with each of you on your own individual threads, but I want to talk about the discussion as a whole because it's really important to getting through all of those steps on the assignment sheet that we just saw. So as I said before, you know, what you're doing in these assignments on a weekly basis really ties into what you're going to be writing in your essay. So there were 2 parts to this. Make sure that you're reading the entire description of the instructions so that you know exactly what you need to do. The first part was asking you first to look at the sample essay, and then from there the second part was actually asking you to take a step forward and maybe think about some of these things for your own essay. And it says here that it should be 2 paragraphs, due midnight on Wednesday, and then your comments for classmates are due at midnight tonight, Friday, and it gives you some suggestions for what to talk about in those comments. And then finally, you'll provide your final reflection by midnight on Sunday, so you have the whole weekend to do that. Okay, so along with what I just said about those two parts, make sure that you're completing the entire assignment, because several of you only posted responses to part one. So I think the first three people initially had only talked about what they saw and connected with in the sample essay. On the other hand, you then have somebody like Jonathan or Bethany that did complete the entire thing. I know that Megan was another one. We can take a look at hers. So you can see here she's got a paragraph that does talk about the sample essay, but then she's also got a paragraph that talks about her own goals, which was part two of the instructions. So she says she's trying not to give up. She wants to have her eye on the prize. So I mentioned earlier that you want to try to make your goal as specific as possible. This is a great jumping off place, but again, tie this maybe a little closely to FRCC. What do you want to complete here at FRCC exactly, Megan? Jackie, I know that you came back later. So Jackie, you had initially posted your response to part one, and then you came back and posted your initial, or your, excuse me, your response to part two here. Don't worry about that being just a little bit late. I will go easy on you guys this week for the deadlines, especially these Wednesday night discussion deadlines. But I was really glad to see, Jackie, that you came back and posted a little bit more about your goal. So just as I said with Megan, you know, not giving up, that is a great way to achieve a goal, but that's not the goal itself specifically. So you do say that you want to graduate. I think that is a much more relevant goal to your time here at FRCC. And so if you could make that just a little bit more specific, maybe what degree do you want to graduate with? How long do you think it will take you to graduate? That kind of thing. That'd be a really great jumping off point for actually coming up with your thesis for the narrative essay. And so thanks for posting again. I know sometimes it's hard to see or hard to know what to do in that case, or at the beginning of the semester and that kind of thing, but that really will help you get more points. So, you know, when in doubt, just try to post, and you can always email me and ask me questions. So a lot of you were talking about things that you connected with in the sample. I agree that the sample is very emotional and moving, and it does a great job drawing the reader in, and the writer really feels like someone you can identify with. And I think that that's because of the way that the writer uses those individual moments portrayed in scenes with concrete details to elaborate on them. And so, you know, that's really the best way to make it vivid and make it feel real to the reader. And so here, you know, Jacob says specifically she wrote about her personal experience and her detailed description about various happenings in her life. For example, she described how her college dreams were postponed because she became pregnant at 17. She opened herself up by disclosing that pregnancy to the readers, as well as the events that followed, including having to work full-time to support her family, later followed by her decision to pursue her dream of obtaining her associate's degree. So this is a really specific example of a place where the writer slows down, gives concrete sensory details, and it draws the reader in and helps them relate. And so I was really glad to see a lot of you were picking up on that, and I think that Jacob did articulate that particularly well here. However, there are definitely other things that I want you to be looking for in the sample essay. So one of those things is how it is structured, how the writer uses the thesis statement to develop the body paragraphs and organize the whole essay. So maybe in your comments to each other, throughout the remainder of today and in your reflections over the weekend, I would encourage you all to maybe consider that and just think about how is the essay structured and organized. Along with that, you will all have to come up with your own thesis statements that are focused on a SMART goal. And as far as just this very initial brainstorming point that we're at here, I think Bethany is off to a really good start in coming up with something that's already pretty close to a SMART goal. So she says she wants to finish all her prereqs in 2 years at Front Range. That is a pretty specific goal. It's got a time frame. You know, you could maybe be just a little more specific if you said how many credits it would be, but otherwise I think this is good. And then she says try to transfer to Regis to finish my BSN, and so that is a statement of relevance and why it's relevant to you to finish your prereqs here at Front Range. And then I just want to point out that this second goal of keeping an average of 3.0 and becoming more organized is more like a step to achieve the overall goal. So if your overall goal is to finish your prereqs, one thing would be to get a 3.5 because that's the maybe GPA that's required to transfer, or you need to get a 3.5 in order to stay in the program, or excuse me, a 3.0 in order to stay in the program, or something like that. And then of course being more organized is also a step that's going to help you complete those classes. So you could use each of these steps to develop body paragraphs in the essay, and maybe just come up with one more, and then as I said, you're pretty close to a SMART goal here. You might just need to add one or two little tiny details in places. So I was glad to see that. I also, since this is our first discussion, I want to remind you all that under our content getting started module, there are some tips for participating in online discussions. But just to give you an idea of what I'm looking for in terms of the comments that you provide to one another, I think Jonathan has done a pretty good job. He's not the only one. There's several of you that have already done your comments, and for the most part, they've been very strong. But I did appreciate the comment that Jonathan made on Megan's post. So I'll show you that one here because it gives you just an example of what I'm looking for. This is a very solid paragraph. He says, it seems you could relate to the author's past and future really well. You could make your emphasis on your goals more powerful in the line. My biggest goal, I guess, is to not give up. I would leave out the I guess part. Your writing about realistic goals is important, but remember to set your goals high enough that you have to stretch to reach them. Or you might be left wondering if you could have done more. Good luck and good work. So here we have a lot of really positive feedback, but there's some constructive feedback as well. And when we say constructive, we usually mean like a specific suggestion about what somebody could do differently, and that's definitely here. And I also saw this happening when Jonathan commented on Bethany's post. I think there's some name confusion, but down here he says, I've read your post and I think you empathize with the author quite well. Your explanation of your goals seem to be realistic and well explained. Try to include some of the emotions the author portrayed so as to hook your audience and help them understand. Punctuation in capital letters, but you're well on your way. Good job. So yeah, like this is detailed. It's not just, hey, good job. It really shows that you put some thought into it, and that's definitely what I'm looking for in those comments if you were wondering. And then again, your reflections at the end of the weekend should be about a paragraph. It can be what you learned, what you were surprised by, what you saw in other people's writing that you read, but also address those comments that you received. You don't have to address them individually one by one, but just kind of tackle them as a whole in that paragraph. Okay, and I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I do want to go over your weekend homework really quickly. So everything you'll need to complete just over the next couple of days, because we are going to start week 2 on Monday. So you can see here in the news item, I have posted still the to-do list for week 1. So of course, go through your checklist, but you should have already done your first discussion post. Make sure you do those responses by midnight tonight Friday, or excuse me, your comments, and then your final reflection by midnight on Sunday. Then your journal is due on Sunday at midnight. There's only about 5 of you who have done that so far. Your quiz is also due midnight on Sunday. You have that short paragraph to write for the pre-reflection activity, which is a Dropbox assignment, also due Sunday, as well as the course scavenger hunt, which is done in the quizzes tab. Or you can always access all of this stuff through the week 1 content module as always. I also posted a couple other things in the news. If you're having a hard time uploading and downloading attachments, I made a little video of how to do that, and then a couple of items there about important dates. So if you're watching this, you've probably participated in the course already, but just know you do have to turn something in for grading 4 points week 1 in order to not be dropped for non-attendance. It's just like if you didn't show up to class, if this were a face-to-face class. And then if you haven't paid, you will also be dropped on June 6th. You won't be able to be added back in either. So make sure that you have paid your bill, or at least set up your payment plan, because if you have a payment plan in place, they will exempt you from that even if you haven't paid the entire bill. So if you have questions about either one of these dates or email attachments, you can always contact myself or your success coach Deb through that grade book class list link here just by clicking on our names. All right, so if you have any further questions about the week 1 assignments or anything that you need to do over the weekend, please don't hesitate to email me. I've already gotten emails from several of you. Try to respond as soon as possible, and I always like communicating with you guys. So I think we're off to a great semester. You know, I meant to say this earlier, but you all seem to be in pretty good shape. Your writing is pretty strong. You're all putting together very coherent sentences, and so I think as long as we are up to the task and can do the work to get through the 5 credits, because it's a lot, I think you'll all make it to English 121. So yeah, just get in touch with me if you need it. Otherwise, have a great weekend, and I wish you the best of luck. Thanks.